So the more people know about this issue of mass incarceration, I think more people will get involved and more people will also understand that a lot of the treatment is inhumane.
I mean, this is like what museums should do. I just think that this helps us be a better society.
Let me know in the comments, has incarceration affected your life?
Prisons themselves are like ubiquitous. They're like everywhere and nowhere. So as we ride by them, we acknowledge that we see them, but we don't know about the machinations. We don't know about what's going on in the space really, and we don't bother to find out.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Johnson Cunningham, and we're discussing mass incarceration today on Display. There are over 2 million people incarcerated in the United States. We are the largest prison system in the world, and crime fluctuates. It is not based on how many people we arrest. Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia helped shape the modern prison system that we know today. Its practices drew many critics, including Charles Dickens, who called the prison and its practice of solitary confinement a place of agony and torture.
This place was designed as the first true penitentiary in the world. And the original concept was to help folks who had broken the law achieve penitence, or what we would call today reform or rehabilitation. But due to overcrowding, they had to abandon that original system of solitary confinement. And that original system sounds pretty harsh today, but was actually considered humane compared to the criminal justice system that came before it, which included public punishment, execution, and shaming.
Eastern State Penitentiary was once the most famous and expensive prison in the world, but stands today in ruin, a haunting world of crumbling cell blocks and empty guard towers. It opened in 1829 and was an operating prison for about 150 years. It closed and then reopened in 1998 as a museum and historic site.
It seems to me that they would just pretty much turn anything into a museum. Let me know in the comments, have you heard of any other unorthodox museums?
Eastern State hires former inmates, referred to as returning citizens, to work as guides. And I'm so thrilled that I had the opportunity to speak to Reem Cotton about his firsthand experience of going to prison and what it's been like for him since he's returned home.
My experience with prison was both rough, physically, emotionally, and I would say psychologically. You need a kind of constitution about you to be in a carceral space, because they're not in place to better you, make you better. Prisons themselves are like ubiquitous. They're like everywhere and nowhere.
Yes.
So as we ride by them, we acknowledge that we see them, but we don't know about the machinations. We don't know about what's going on in the space really, and we don't bother to find out.
Right.
Philosophically and structurally, you see Eastern State present in contemporary corrections. Whenever you find a place to put folks, somehow you find more folks to put there, right?
For more than a century, the U.S. imprisoned between 100 and 200 people for every 100,000 citizens. That began to change around the time that Eastern State Penitentiary closed in 1970. New laws and longer prison sentences began to dramatically increase the prison population.
Now, the big graph is three-sided. On the one side, it demonstrates for us sort of when it all began. and on the other side explains, who exactly is getting locked up based largely on race.
So there's a large jump between 1970 and 2010. Why do you think that occurred?
Beginning with the war on crime was then morphed into what would arguably be called the war on drugs and its natural outgrowths, whether that's 3 strikes legislation, mandatory minimums for drug sentences, and the swelling population is largely nonviolent offenders, right?
If I'm not mistaken, the war on crime happened up under the Clinton administration, if I'm not mistaken. Is that the same as the war on drugs? Let me know in the comments.
And so the other side, we see here a breakdown of race. The Black population has significantly increased, even though the population itself is only 13 or 14%.
Absolutely. Overwhelmingly, there's an overrepresentation of Black and brown bodies within carceral spaces. That is a fact.
Right. Brian Stevenson says it's a continuation of the enslavement system as well. To continue to put Black bodies in prison, to continue to do work, to continue to punish is a part of the same system, and it isn't disconnected.
Yeah.
Now, Eastern State Penitentiary is introducing the public to greater dialogue around issues of crime, justice, and the changing face of our criminal justice system.
So when I joined the staff back in 2012, we really only interpreted the history of this building. And starting in about 2013, we began to talk about mass incarceration really with our museum voice. We feel like we have the potential, or that we are in many ways, the National Prison Museum, where folks should be coming together in dialogue across many lived experiences to talk about what we think prisons should do in this country. We really believe that there can be public safety, there can be safe communities without having to have 2 million people in prison.
Okay, I have a question. Let's just assume the way the prison system is right now today was abolished. Let me know in the comments, what are other ways could they be used as a form of punishment for people that break the law if there was no prison system?
One thing that he mentioned that stood out to me was that it's not necessarily people who were imprisoned who need assistance with getting back into everyday life, but those of us who are not in prison, welcoming them. We usually think well, how are these people going to be able to navigate the world today? And he's like, we're navigating. We know how to navigate. The issue is people on the outside embracing us.
Because the reality is, even folks in carceral spaces are part of our community.
Right.
They will be back.
Yeah. What we have to look at changing is the conditions of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And just
Communities.
prisons themselves, I believe, have become a place like our repositories for problems that we just don't want to deal with directly right now. But it's still there.
Yeah. So we are here at the Drawing Center to see The Pencil is a Key exhibition. The Pencil is a Key provides visibility for artists who were formerly or currently incarcerated, and it provides a lens into the historical and contemporary narrative of incarceration. Can you tell us a little bit more about how the show materialized?
It began with the idea of artists drawing on prison walls. And so from there, it moved to this idea of drawings by artists who are incarcerated. We thought a lot about, what ground we wanted it to cover, what centuries, and we ended up beginning with the French Revolution, because I think we see that time or shortly thereafter as being the birth of the modern prison system.
What are some of the themes that you see that stand out with some of the artists in the show?
The one genre that is predominant is portraiture. It's the idea of trying to access humanity, right? So what is a more interesting subject than your fellow inmate?
I think it's so amazing to think about those who have been and are incarcerated as artists. They are human beings who are expressing what they are going through when their freedom is taken from them. And it's so interesting to see the aesthetics of what they are creating, to see the narratives, to see the subject matters.
These works were made by a Kurdish artist and journalist. Her name is Zehra Dogan. She was incarcerated because she made a painting of kind of like conflicts in Kurdish cities that offended the Turkish government. So these are all fabrics that her mother sent her, and she drew on them. And these are likely women that perhaps were incarcerated with Zehra in prison. And here you can see, for instance, little girls.
Yeah, and I also see like pregnant women here too.
Right, yes.
And I know here in the US, that is an issue with women being incarcerated who are giving birth. A lot of them are chained to the hospital bed while they're giving birth. So that kind of reminds me of that issue here in the United States.
You know, the purpose of this show was not to pass a judgment. You know, we have people that come in and say, oh, you have a lot of political prisoners, and then you have some people who did bad things. First of all, anyone who's incarcerated, it's political, right? There are reasons why certain people, are incarcerated at greater rates than other people. It's all political, and we are not here to pass judgment on what someone did. And I think when people start going through the show, they stop asking that question, right? They realize that that's not the point of this show, and they start to see the humanity that is coming through these drawings.
The issue is so contemporary, it's so around us. It's not just a civic duty, but an art historical duty, if you will, to mark this moment, mark this period in American life. For those of us who have had experience with incarceration, there's a relatability. For those of us who have not, and many of us in the art community have a kind of blindness to that element in the United States, even though there's an ICE facility 10 blocks away. It's a way for us to understand and relate to situations that might be considered unseeable.
I think it's really important to place this issue on display. And I think it's so important that more and more people continue to talk about it, especially in the art world. We know that arts and culture are a part of creating the national dialogue, are part of creating political narratives. And so the more people know about this issue of mass incarceration, I think more people will get involved, and more people will also understand that a lot of the treatment is inhumane. These individuals, how are we helping them to come back into society? How are we making sure that the communities that they represent get better resources so that there aren't more people who enter the prison system?
We're playing the role of almost like public information officers. We're making sure that folks know the real facts in and around mass incarceration, and we're doing it in a way that's bold and brave and unapologetic.
I mean, this is like what museums should do. Museums should be places where people come together to learn new things and become passionate about issues that impact their lives every single day. I just think that this helps us be a better society. And if museums want to be engaged in social justice issues, which so many of them claim they want to, they need to work on projects, and they need to include the voices of everybody in their community. And folks who have been incarcerated are among the most marginalized people in our society.
Yeah.
Okay, so earlier in the video, I asked the question. I asked, how has incarceration affected your life? And I'm going to answer that question. I remember when I was young, I don't remember exactly what age, 8, 9 years old, and my father was incarcerated. We went to go visit him, and it was in Jefferson City. Um, I saw jail differently from what I saw on TV. It almost looked like a fraternity, a frat house, you know. Well, when he got out, first off, he never went back after that day, after that time. And we began mending our relationship. You know, it started from friendship and it grew from there. And we stayed close all the way until he passed away a few years back. But what it taught me was that it taught me to take a step back and look at what he did and gain examples and understanding from the mistakes that he made. Many people, they have the FAFO, and that's the only way that they're going to gain an understanding. Whereas me, I learned to understand from other people's mistakes. Let me know in the comments, have you gained understanding from other people's mistakes as well? And as always, don't forget to like, share, watch more videos, and subscribe to the channel.